future is here. You now have the power to unlock the secrets of the hobby. An innovation that will change the way the industry works. The game changer is here. Card Ladder.
Welcome to Kristina's Corner. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Jake Roy, host of the 90s Basketball Cards YouTube and at 90s_b-ball_cards on Instagram. Jake considers the 1990s to be the golden era of card collecting. I personally would agree. He's been in the hobby content game for over 2 years, churning out high-quality production videos 1 to 2 times a week. Welcome, Jake, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited.
Thank you. Okay, let's get into it. Your YouTube channel is 90s B-Ball Cards, and that is basketball for anyone who is wondering. What is it like to be a prominent hobby content creator?
I hope you're using prominent pretty loosely. It's a lot of fun. I think it's one of those things that can be stressful, but I always have to remind myself when I'm feeling like a little bit pressure or under the gun, I need to get something recorded. This is for fun, and I'm the one making myself do it. So, it's supposed to be fun. The hobby is fun. Content creation should be fun if you're making content. And if you're not having fun, then what's the point of doing it? But it's fun to share my passion, my hobby with a bunch of people. It's fun to see people care about what I have to say about stuff that I've been geeking out about since I was, in grade school. So it's really a lot of fun. When I started it, I was saying that if I ever got to 1,000 subs on YouTube, I would be astonished. And here I am at 1,500, and it keeps growing every day. So I'm blown away by that.
Yes, congratulations. I'm happy to see it rise. I know Chris has said it before on other platforms as well, but you were our content like back in the day when there was no other basketball card collecting YouTube or podcast out there. We would eat up your shows every week when they came out. And then we started getting in on the podcast game, but you were our of information and content in what we consider the Sahara of the time. So it's very awesome to sit down with you because I feel like I've known you personally for a long time, and I know we've become friends through Instagram, but not to sound stalkerish, but I was totally your friend before you knew of me. But yeah,
I mean, I'm flattered. Thank you. It's funny, when I started the channel, I went out before. I was trying to be a little bit strategic, tiny bit, before I started the channel, and I went out and looked at what can I find out here for basketball card content. And the only thing I could find was the 27 guy, the basketball card podcast, and all those episodes were 3 years old. And I was like, there's really nobody just doing basketball card content. So then I was trying to figure out what can I do that would be fun for me, that I can actually provide some value. I love opening packs, and I didn't want to just be a breaker. I wanted to actually provide some sort of information, some sort of education. I also was an OG Gary Vee fan, so I consumed his original YouTube show called The Wine Library, and I was like, I could probably do The Wine Library for cards. So that was kind of what I started with. And then 2 or 3 months after I started, Josh started his show. And then a month or two later, you guys started your show. And then Kyle started Wax Museum. And then it's a snowball effect. And we just get more and more every day, it seems like, which is great.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love the historical lessons that you put in your show. I think everyone knows I am a huge fan of opening packs. Josh, Cardboard Chronicles, calls me a degenerate pack ripper. Yeah, but that's what is fun. Like, I think.
Exactly.
So I love to see you rip the cards and then tell the story about the set and like the history and the significance. I always find those interesting, for sure. And as a history nerd, like I love that content. So I'm always happy to see your new shows pop up.
Thanks. Yeah, it's funny. In school, I was bad at history, and I really didn't like history. I can't remember dates to save my life. So when it came time for an exam, it was rough. But for some reason, I can remember the dates that cards were produced, like the back of my hand, and a lot of other things about cards that just stick there. So I also was one of those nerds that just read the Beckett magazines like they were going out of style. Like I couldn't get enough. Not just the articles that were in there, but also like I would look at each of the sets and they would kind of have a little blurb and each of the insert sets. And I always wanted to learn more about like what was the inspiration behind the set. What's the theme? Is there a theme? If there's not a theme, why isn't there a theme? All kinds of stuff like that. Why is it serial numbered? I just wanted to know more and more and more about the sets. And still today, it's like there's sets that I don't know anything about that I'm like, where's the information? I want to find who created this. So, yeah.
I find that stuff very interesting. And we'll have to talk offline about an idea I just had for you about that. But yeah. So what roles do you and other hobby content creators have in the hobby?
That's a really good question, and it's something I have to kind of keep trying to, I guess, reevaluate as we go. So I think at this point, because we have a lot of content creators that are kind of coming in, some of them are new to the hobby and collecting, some of them have been around for years, and some of them have really great information, and some of them are just kind of sharing their experiences and their growth. So for me, somebody who's been in it since the 90s, I think that my responsibility is really to kind of not only share my story and share the information that I have, but also share if there's misinformation out there, share, kind of the truth of the matter. A lot of times with basketball cards, people will talk about them in terms of, their favorite this and their favorite that. And sometimes you'll see prices kind of get changed because people say, I really like this. But for me, it's like, okay, well, that card was 1 in 24 packs and this other card was 1 in 200 packs. Why is the 1 in 200 pack card less valuable than the one that's 1 in 24 packs just because somebody said they like it? So I always like to share that. And for some people, they don't care. It's a cool card. They like it. That's fine. But I think it's my job to kind of share that information because I have it. Not everybody knows it or cares about it. So if I have that information, it's my obligation, I think, to share the knowledge I have.
Very well put. And I know that you're a huge supporter of hobby content creators. Thank you for that, for always shouting out like our spinoffs and everyone else's. I see you constantly like helping to prop up other content creators and show your support, which is amazing. We need more of that in the hobby. But you've been teasing me for the past couple of weeks about a hockey player. Yep. On different chats and platforms, you keep saying that there might be a relation between Patrick Roy, the American pronunciation of that name. I'll let you butcher the French pronunciation of it. I don't know. Okay, let's get into the story, Jake. Now that I have you, have you captive, spill.
And so I always kind of play a little bit more mysterious with that than maybe the truth is. So I might be wrong on this. I'm not the biggest hockey aficionado. So those who do know hockey, please be forgiving if I mess this up. But the guy's name is Patrick Roy. He's French-Canadian, I believe. He was a goalie, and he played for the Canadiens. And then I got familiar with him when he was playing for the Avalanche. There was a Boston Bruins player named Ray Bourque, and being in New England, I followed the Bruins. He went to the Avalanche. The Avalanche had a Stanley Cup team. I started watching the Avalanche and started getting familiar with all those players. So having the last name Roy and seeing this guy that seems like he has the same last name as me, I was a little bit intrigued. So my dad was always saying, "Oh yeah, that's our long lost cousin." So I was like, "Wait, really? Are you sure about that?" So interestingly enough, my dad's dad, so my paternal grandfather, was adopted pretty much from birth. So we don't know anything about his history, his lineage, any brothers, sisters, anything about his family. So there is a lot of Roys in the New England area that are French Canadian, and we don't know if we're related to any of them, or so there's a chance that he could be a long lost. I don't know what he'd probably be to me, as a great uncle or something like that. But there's a chance that there could be a relation. We're not sure. But my dad always jokes around people that he's a long lost brother of his. So
Sounds like you need to do an ancestry test so you can find connect you to relations.
I have been wanting to do an ancestry.com for a long time because of that not just because of Patrick Waugh, but because we don't know about my grandfather's history. So I've wanted to find out a lot. We think we know what we are, but you're never really sure until you put that DNA in the cup, right?
Yeah, and I think that's everyone. And then also I don't. Yeah, I'll leave it at that about those DNA tests. I will say that as a privacy nerd, I have read the privacy terms of Ancestry and a couple other of the companies, and Ancestry is the best privacy-wise. So that's why I always say you should do Ancestry instead of the others, because I'm the nerd who actually read through the privacy terms and conditions. Well,
that is really helpful to know. I'm actually very glad that you said that.
Yeah,
because I know there's a couple out there that
you never know what kind of interesting nuggets you'll get on Kristina's Corner.
Right? Who knew that we were going to talk about DNA tests here?
Yeah, who knew? Okay, let's talk about the hobby. Okay. What has been your favorite modern product of the last approximately 3 years?
That's a great question. So it's changed, in all honesty. So for those who may have seen my interview on Cardboard Chronicles, and that was my first year of content creation, Josh and I talked about this up and coming kind of one of those hidden gems in the hobby known as Donruss Optic. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that set, but that used to be my favorite. As we all know, Donruss Optic has blown up in the last year or so. And I really like that because when I was getting re-familiarized with some of the Panini products, that was one that I just happened to roll into Target and see a hanger pack, and I grabbed it, and I was like, oh, these are cool cards. And it happened to be the first year of Optic. And I pulled a Thon Maker rookie auto purple, and I was like, this card's going to be valuable. It's an auto, coming from the 90s. Anything autographed is valuable, and it's not. But I really liked the cards. They were really cool, and I thought they were a good value because you could get a little bit more in the hangers and the blasters than you would for Prism, but it was shiny like Prism. And it kind of hit on some of the notes of people always say it's more similar to Topps Chrome than Prism, and I definitely agree with that. So, kind of hit on some of those things that harken me back to the 90s. So that used to be my favorite. It's not so much anymore because, you can't really find it this year especially. And then another one that was becoming my favorite was Prism Mosaic, when it had, kind of that same pattern as Prism, but they're the same design as Prism, but a new pattern on top of that. And they changed it up this year, and just, I don't not like it, but I don't like it as much as I did the prior year stuff. So that's kind of my two that were and now aren't. And then the one that I'm starting to actually get more, fond of is actually a football product. So this year, because I couldn't get a lot of basketball retail, if I had the itch to open something modern, I grabbed football because that's what was available. So there was a set called Illusions, I think that's what it was called, that kind of harkened me back to Flair Showcase, which I love. It kind of has that foil. You've got some different colors in there. You got the two pictures of the player, which I love. So I really like Illusions. I think that's a really cool looking set. I would love to see that in basketball. So that's my answer. It's football, surprisingly enough.
All right. And the question I know you really want to answer, what's your favorite 90s product to rip? Not necessarily your favorite 90s product in general, but what's your favorite to rip? And then we can get into the generalization.
Right. So that's a great question. I'm actually thinking of doing a video because it's a question I get asked a lot. People will hit me up and say, "Hey, I want to get a box of cards to open. What should I get?" I'll tell them this is what I would get if I were you, but I don't know what you know. I'll go through kind of what they like. But so to rip, my favorite is Topps Finest. I love Topps Finest. 96, 97 was my favorite as a kid. That Series 1 had all the rookies. Those were the true rookies back in the day. So that bronze base of Kobe was the Kobe rookie for, the first probably 18 months or maybe a little bit less into his career before people really got onto Topps Chrome. 97, 98, I absolutely love to rip because they have the embossed refractors, which are gorgeous. They have those patterns, so you can actually get that mosaic pattern on the silver embossed refractors in 97, 98. And then they also have the embossed refractors, the gold version, that are die cut, numbered 74. Incredible stuff. And another little reason why I like Finest is because of the peel. Those cards don't stick to each other. So a lot of these cards that we see from the 90s, if you're opening a box of Topps base, you're going to get probably a good amount of sticking, and you might damage some nice cards. But that peel helps those cards not to stick, and the embossing helps the cards not to stick. So that's the other reason why I love opening Topps Finest, because I feel a little bit more safe that I'm not going to have as much sticking, if any at all. So that's what I would say.
Okay, so that's to rip. Now, what is your favorite 90s product?
My favorite 90s product has got to be 1997 SPX.
Okay.
That stuff was super premium when it came out. There was one card in a pack, and those packs were not cheap for hobby packs at that. It's nothing close to NT or anything like that now, but at that point in time, 1997, I think a pack was about $5, and spending $5, it might have been more than that, but I think it was about $5 to get one card, and that one card could have been Christian Laettner base. Pretty big.
Hey, don't hate on Laettner.
Everybody hates Chris, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a Duke fan, so anyway. But so you could pull that, or you could pull something like the promotion auto of Penny, which is numbered to 100. So it's like that $5 could take you to the moon, or it could take you to the dumpster. And the set design on that was incredible. Like the die cuts, the holograms, the fact that you actually they jammed 3 pictures of a player into less space than you had on a traditional card, and having that die cut be the same pattern that they have on all the inserts, everything, had that same theme. I love a product that's got a good theme to it. So SPX 1997, that has got to be it.
All right. And without divesting any industry secret for yourself, where do you find all of your 90s wax?
So that is
something you don't want to talk about.
No, I'm happy to talk about it, because there are some people who will ask me and they'll be like, if you can share it. I'm like, look, I can share it, because the fact of the matter is, if I don't share, other people are going to find it regardless. I might as well be. I always talk about sharing the knowledge you have, so that's kind of my take. And so a lot of the packs when I started out were packs that I had actually surprisingly left over, so to speak, when I was younger, that I just kind of had laying around that I, for whatever reason, didn't rip. I can't tell you why. And I still have some of those floating around. So every once in a while I'll grab those and I'll try to do a video. But if I'm trying to get a specific product, or I want something a little bit special, eBay, obviously I'll go searching there. That can be difficult to get a good deal. And that's the other thing. I'm a bargain hunter. If a pack usually sells for $10, I'm trying to get it for $5 or $7. I like that part of the hunt. It kind of keeps me hunting a little bit longer, because sometimes you can call me stingy or whatever. I know sometimes sellers say basketball card collectors are the worst for lowballing, and I definitely don't help that stereotype a lot of times. But so eBay is definitely a prominent source. But then Facebook groups. That's really one of the places that I first started is getting to know people in Facebook groups, and they would stumble upon, maybe a pawn shop or a thrift store, or they know somebody who used to own a card shop and they stumble upon a bunch of packs or boxes or cases sometimes. And then, they're looking to divest of those things. So getting to know some of those people. And now it's at the point where some people will get things and they'll hit me up before they're going to run a sale, or they're not going to run a sale, but they want me to have some. I'll have some people, I know Grant sent me a generous gift and he sent me a box that he wanted me to rip on the channel. So I've had people do that, send me packs or boxes that they want me to rip. And I try to do my best to remember to shout them out. Sometimes I forget, and I apologize if I do. And then the other kind of surprising place sometimes is, just going out to yard sales. I don't get to go out to yard sales too often, but when I do, I'm always looking for cards. And sometimes you stumble upon something and somebody doesn't know what they have. And I'll try to do my best to, I don't want to rip anybody off, but at the same time, I'm going to rip them open, and that ROI is typically negative. So if I can get an ROI positive once in a while, that's not bad either.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of everything. I search top and bottom. 2 a.m. Right. I'll be searching for packs.
Yeah, and it sounds like being a good person and a good friend of the hobby works wonders. So good karma is needed so that people look out for you when they find stuff as well. So that's a lesson I think we deserve to hear. Not my listeners, of course, because they're the best of the hobby, but maybe they'll share this with others who might need to learn that lesson. Let's talk about the hobby market. So yes. Do you believe that the hobby is in a bubble?
That is a great question. I recently did a video discussing exactly that. And I think saw it. Yeah. I was hoping you might have, but and I think it's a great question, and it's something that I think is constantly evolving and that we need to continually evaluate and reevaluate. So I don't think we're in a true bubble. And I really like the way that Josh put it when him and Chris had their crossover conversation a couple weeks ago. And it's the card market is not a purely financial market. It's a collectible. So when we open a pack, it's not the same as going to the casino, let's say, and putting $5 down on a hand of blackjack. If you put $5 down on that SPX pack back in the day, regardless of what happens, you're going to end up with something. You might not value what you got at $5, but if you put your $5 on that hand of blackjack, you're either going to get money or you're going to lose it. And the same thing if you're investing in stocks. Whatever traditional financial means of investing that you're thinking of, it's either you make money, you don't make money, or you lose money. And that's not the only thing with card collecting. So that, I think, kind of eliminates the potential of a true financial bubble like the housing market or what have you. But at the same time, we are seeing prices go up exponentially in some cases. But when I was doing some of that research, that's not the case across the board. There are some cases that, the cards aren't increasing, or they did increase and now they're decreasing, or, sometimes they're staying a little bit steady. So I think that there are some cards that are rising in price more than necessarily they should. I don't think it's sustainable for some of the individual cards, the prices that they're currently at or the prices that they seem to be trending towards. But there are other cards that I don't think that they're going to drop in value, or I don't think that they're going to stop rising in value over time. So it's really kind of a case-by-case basis. So I think the important thing to do is really look at the card, why you're buying the card. If you're buying the card because, and sometimes it's difficult to understand in ourselves when we're buying something due to FOMO. But if you're, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm just going to put a card out there. Please don't be offended. If you're looking at buying the Prism base of Luka in a PSA 10, are you buying that because you really like Luka? You really want that card? You really want the one copy or one of the 1,000th copy that's in great condition? Or are you buying it because you're seeing that a lot of other people are buying it and you think it's going to continue going up in price, and you think Luka's going to be an MVP and a Hall of Famer and all these other things? If you're buying it because you think Luka's going to do better than he's currently doing and the card's going to continue going up, it might be a good time to take a little bit of a pause or look at a different Luka card or something like that. But if you're getting it because you love Luka, you really think that Luka is your favorite player. If Luka sprains his ankle and doesn't play, you're still going to love him. Go spend whatever you want on that card. You know, like Penny is my guy. Penny had terrible knee injuries. I would argue in 1996 with my brother if Penny was better than Jordan. In 1998, I couldn't really make that argument anymore, but I still loved Penny. I still collected him, and I didn't really care that some of his cards weren't as valuable as they used to be. I just love Penny cards. I love Penny as a player. So that's, you know, if you're passionate about the player or if you're passionate about the card, it doesn't have to be necessarily the player. I focus on players. I'm a player collector, but if you love a card, if you look at optic hollows in yours, I love the way that those cards look. It doesn't really matter what they're worth, because at the end of the day, if it's worth 0, you're still going to love the way it looks.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, and I want to get into the arguments that you and your brother had, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But let's stay on the market topic. Okay, so where do you think the hobby is going?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the hobby is stronger than it's ever been, at least that I can remember. And I think that it's growing exponentially, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time to see the prices rise. It's exciting when, you know, I've got an order with PSA, and every day it seems like those cards that are with PSA, depending on what they get graded, seem to be getting more and more valuable. So it's like, okay, well, take your time, guys. But it's
you're the only one who does that, Jake. I think you're the only one who does that.
No, I am anxiously awaiting. I'm anxiously awaiting finding out what those cards get for grades. But at the same time, you know, the Kobe White silver that I've got, it just, you know, keeps aging faster than a wine. So better than a good wine. So I lost my train of thought, but
sorry,
I'll get it back. That's okay. Yeah. And so we've got new people coming in every day, more and more people. And I think it's exciting because they're also learning. Hopefully they're learning, and they're researching, and they're trying to find out information. So I think it's exciting because there are lots of times I'll be on Twitter, for example, and somebody will ask a question about something that I covered in a video a year and a half ago. And I can say, hey, you know what? I discussed this in this video. Here's the answer to your question. But if you want to learn a little bit more, here's the video as well. And it's fun to be able to keep kind of sharing that knowledge to people that's brand new to. Even though, you know, it was a little bit older of my content, it's brand new for them. At the same token, with the prices continually rising for some certain cards, I do worry about those prices being sustainable. And if those prices tend to, you know, I think that any sort of marketplace is like a pendulum where, you know, you'll swing between being a bull and a bear market. And, you know, we're definitely swinging in the bull right now. But at some point in time, for whatever reason, we will swing back, and, you know, prices will slow, or, you know, what have you. And I worry about people who maybe are buying some of those cards because they think they're going to go up, getting a little bit disenchanted, or that they're, you know, going and saying, hey, this NT is great, I'm going to buy it and rip it and make some money. And, you know, they're not. A lot of times, you know, so people who are getting into it just for financial gain, I worry about them getting disenchanted and leaving. But I am excited about a whole new generation of collectors coming in, learning about cards, and just falling in love with them like I did when I was a little kid. So it's exciting. I think we've got a bright future. I know, again, going back to that interview I had with Josh, we talked about it a little bit. And I look at, you know, collectors like us who collect stuff from the 90s. If you look at people who collected cards from the 50s, those cards are, you know, really still climbing. And I think they're really driven by that generation. And, you know, if you look at somebody like me, I'm in my 30s, I'm not showing any signs of slowing down in my collecting. So, you know, 40 years from now, we could still be seeing prices rise a little bit. I don't think it's just going to be a straight line up exponentially, but I think that, we've got a bright future if if a new generation gets in and really starts to love it like we all have.
Yeah, very well put. So let's talk about your PC and your hobby history. I know you just said that you would have arguments with your brother about Jordan or Hardaway. Let's dive into that. What is it like to collect with your brother and like almost against your brother? Right?
So
it's a competition because everything in life is a competition.
it's funny. It's a lot of fun, and it truly is a competition. My brother is super competitive. Growing up, being a huge Jordan fan, he wanted to be like Mike, and part of being like Mike is being a little bit of a jerk and being very competitive. Those two go hand in hand. And, I think if you ask my brother, he can say he can be both of those at times. And our card collecting, definitely, there are certain parts that he will definitely say, you've got the edge on me. When it comes to the breadth of collection, there'll be times I'll get a penny card in and he'll be like, dude, I will never get that Jordan. That Jordan is way out of my league. There's no way I can get that. That's so cool that you have the penny. I wish I could get the Jordan. And then there'll be other times that he'll just hold up a stack and say, hey, guess how much this stack is worth? And I can't do that with my penny cards. I can be like, hey, look at this box. It's the same. Obviously, there are certain penny cards out there, the PMG green for one, that can, pale and can, make his Jordans pale in comparison. But that's not something I have in my collection. I don't think I'm going to get that for a long time. But, so there's always that, and we go back and forth. But it's also a ton of fun because having somebody, I think, and that's kind of the community part, not just my brother, but having other people, you, Chris, other friends that I used to collect with that are coming back into the hobby, being able to collect alongside people. And when they get something that they've been searching for, celebrating that with them. When you get something, they celebrate your wins. That's always a lot of fun. But the other thing that I always love is when you're searching for something, having other people that kind of help you find things. Hey, I know that you might like this. I know that you like this player. What do you think about this? That type of stuff. And then doing the same thing in return. I can't tell you how many times my friend Joe is a Tim Duncan collector, and I'll happen upon a Tim Duncan card for whatever reason, and I'll shoot him the listing. He's like, dude, that's great. I just grabbed that. I can't believe you found that. Because for some reason, people will list Tim Duncan under Penny Hardaway on eBay. So I'll find it.
I will say, as a PSA, public service announcement to everyone, please get better at eBay listings. Working in Card Ladder and doing the all-time sales history all the way back through 2004, you just see the strangest things listed, and you're like, that is not even the same year. That's not the same player. That's not that box of wax. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I lament with you on that. But luckily, your friend has you looking for Penny Hardaway, and then you can shoot him those Tim Duncans who are listed as Penny Hardaway.
And the flip side of that is also, please do your research and know what is a fair price to list your cards at, because, and this is kind of a little bit of sour grapes, I can't tell you how obnoxious it is when I go and look for a penny card and I find that it's sold for a fraction of what it should have. It's infuriating because I'm like, first off, I would have bought that for twice that. I would have bought that for 3 times that price. But then obviously that lucky person who was able to snag that just so happened to type, I think Chris was saying it recently. I'm never the fastest finger when it comes to searching. If I find something that looks a little bit too good to be true, it's once in a blue moon. And I feel like there's some people who are just better at it than I am, which kudos to them. But, if people, stop listing their, penny 97, 98 jersey card for $25 when it's $1,000 card, I would really appreciate it.
Let me shameless plug. If only there was some kind of tool that you could use for looking up prices of your cards.
I wonder how you could do that.
I don't know. Maybe you could climb something and find the price.
Ooh, I'll have to think about that.
Cardladder.com, CARDLADDER.com. Okay. Shameless plug over. You set me up too perfectly. The boys would have gotten mad at me if I didn't mention it.
I threw the open use down.
Okay. So when did you start collecting? Like, what's your earliest memory of cards?
Yes. So actually, ironically, it's opportune that I'm here. This is not my normal setup. So I'm at my family's. My family has a little summer cottage in the woods on a small lake, a tiny lake. Calling it a lake is a little bit of an exaggeration, but this is actually where I started collecting back in 1995. I will never forget. There's a little bit of a larger town, the one town over that has a few stores, like real stores in it. And they had an Olympia Sports that had just opened, and one of their ploys to get people to come in to check out what they had was they had free packs of cards. And my older brother had collected in the early 90s, late 80s, but he was more of a baseball and football guy. And they had packs of 95, 96 NBA hoops. So I went into that store as often as they would give me packs. So at some point they would say, okay, kid, you've had enough packs. We're not giving you any more. You come back in. And I'd say, okay, what about tomorrow? And they're like, yeah, you can have one more tomorrow. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. So I got as many packs as humanly possible. And I just thought they were really cool. Those 95, 96 hoops packs have a ton of subsets. So there are a lot of different designs. I thought they were really cool. The themes on them were really neat. And then the not so great part of it is I had pulled a Jalen Rose Rock the House, which was subset. It's not a terribly valuable card, but Jalen Rose was his second year Fab Five player. A lot of exciting things happening with the Nuggets at that point in time. And my older brother, who was a veteran of the hobby, had pulled a John Starks of the same set and kind of hoodwinked me into trading it. And I did not want to trade it because I thought I was just going off of if the player looked like they were better, right? If they passed the eye test. And Jalen Rose in that picture looked like a better player than John Starks. And he was like, no, John Starks, he battles with Jordan all the time. And I was like, he looks like an old man. I don't want this old man. I want this guy who's going to be good. And he was like, no, trust me, this is going to be a good trade for you. In hindsight now, it was a wash. But at that point in time, that John Starks was not, it didn't have the potential that the Jalen Rose did. But I remember that, and I always remember that when I'm making deals with people, because I remember getting kind of hoodwinked by my older brother, and I'll be like, if I hoodwink somebody in a deal, they're not gonna think too fondly of me. So I always try to remember that and do right in a deal. And then the other thing that I remember it was 2 summers after that, the first card that I cognizantly traded for was a 97-98 Topps Juwan Howard. And I thought the picture was really cool, which is something I still love about cards. I love photography. So if there's a card that has a great picture, I might end up picking it up. So I still have that card too.
That's awesome. Have you ever taken a hiatus in your collecting?
Kind of. So I never like truly stepped completely away. Just like, I'm done with cards. I'm getting rid of everything. I'm never touching cards again. I never really had a moment like that, but I definitely had a moment that I didn't take it quite as seriously, so really when I started getting towards the latter years of high school, I was a pretty avid basketball player. So I was playing basketball all year round. I had 4 different teams I'd play for. So that consumed a lot of my time. A lot of my weekends would be traveling to Boston or wherever for games. And, trying to talk to girls, that was something I was not doing great at, but I would, try my best. And so that was kind of where my attention was. But my dad would still get us packs or boxes. A lot of times those would be kind of celebrations for the end of the school year or Christmas gifts that we'd all open together. So I'd always be getting something. And, I'd still have my cards. They'd just kind of be off in the corner. And, when I'd get those packs and we'd sort them out, I'd, stick them in my collection and go through that. And then as I got into college, still focus on other things. But every time I'd go back home, I would go to the retail outlets and I would see what they have. And I remember picking up SP Game Used at a Walmart for the first time. I'll show my first PC card. I had they had tins of SP Game Use that year. And I remember thinking this was really cool. And I would always look on the boxes to see what can you get, what's the best buy. And, I'm a bargain hunter. So I would try to see what was the best use of my money. So I got this tin of SP Game Use. I thought, this was pretty cool stuff. You get a lot of jerseys. And I'm going through it, and I'm getting, I got a jersey card of Andrew Bynum, and I got a dual jersey of Lamar Odom and Luke Walton. Nothing that's really getting anybody too excited, but, neat stuff. And then I, in disbelief, saw this card of a player that I don't collect, but about everybody else. So I pulled this dual jersey of Jordan and LeBron, numbered to 499.
Here, wait, keep it up. Hold on.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Just want to make sure people can see it. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
So I pulled that, and I did not believe my eyes as far as what I had there. And partially because my brother's the Jordan collector. So what business do I have pulling Jordans? And LeBron was a young guy. I think, what year was this? I think this was 08, 09, 10. So, LeBron still had not, kind of reached the pinnacle that he's at right now, but he was definitely ascending. So very exciting to pull. And my brother was very jealous that I was the lucky guy that got that pin.
I'm sure you weren't petty about it or anything. Moved it from his face or... No. Yeah. I'm sorry, you cut out for a second.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Okay, so let's talk about your PC. What are your 10 favorite cards?
Well, one of them I just showed you.
Yeah.
So that's probably my favorite card that I've pulled out of a pack.
Okay.
There are other pulls that I've had that are pretty fun, but that one, more so because of the players on it, is a little bit more special. Obviously, if I pulled that and it was Deron Williams and Chris Paul, it might not be in my top 10. But it's Jordan and LeBron, so it's up there. And it's definitely one that I need to get graded at some point. So another one, the next two, these are cards that I loved as a kid. I saw them in the Beckett. I saw them, sometimes in pictures on eBay listings when eBay started having pictures on listings, because that wasn't always the case. And I was just like, man, those are so cool. I want those so bad. But I could never attain them until I got a little bit older. So the first one here, 96-97 EX 2000 cut above. And, this is one with that, kind of that reflective hollow foil all over it. Definitely plays with the blue in Penny's jersey. I love the fact that it's a full-length picture of Penny. You can see those Penny, his first signature shoe in there, which I love. Die cuts or something so 90s that I just can't get enough of. So that cut above was just one that I happened to find an eBay listing that was actually a bad listing. It had a terrible picture of the card. Did not look like the seller did a lot of card selling. The case that it was in was a little questionable. And I said, I'm going to take a gamble. Got it for well below market value, and couldn't have been happier. Definitely was a good purchase. So, and actually the football version and I think the baseball version that they have are better designs. And I'm a little bit salty that they didn't do it with basketball, where that saw blade is actually continued on the bottom. So instead of having that squared off bottom, you have the saw blade on the bottom as well. So at some point I will probably be getting a Brett Favre or somebody else that I like from football in my collection, because those are really cool looking.
Yeah,
then the other one
those inserts are gorgeous. I love those.
Yeah, the Arenas did a great job with a lot of those, and that's one of the shining examples in my opinion. The other one that was one that I just couldn't believe was the 96-97 again Flair Showcase Hot Shots of Penny. So this is another one. This one's got obviously the die cut that I love, but this one features embossing, which is another feature that's a very 90s feature that I love. And the picture on it doesn't get me as excited because you can't even see Penny's face, which is a little bit of a bummer. I like full-length pictures where you can see the full player jersey and everything about it. But those were super cool cards. And getting one, there's a number of errors that I've found. Like Eddie Jones has Penny's name on it, or Penny has Eddie Jones. So finding the one that is the proper version is a little bit harder than people might realize, because those errors weren't that uncommon. I don't know why, but I've seen a number of Penny Hardaway errors, and that's not the one I want. So those are the two as a kid that I just couldn't even dream of getting, and now I've got them. So those are definitely up there. And then probably my favorite insert set design is the 97-98 Ultra Star Power Supreme. So this one, again, you see a theme here. There's another die cut, but this one's got acetate, which is another thing I love from the 90s. But the cool thing here that I loved is not only those little atomic things that are reflective, but on the back of the card, there's a little picture of Penny that is only on the back of the prior two copies, or prior two levels, if you will. But that one you can actually see all the way through the card. So a lot of times with acetate, they just kind of white out one side of the picture, and this one they didn't. You can see it all the way through. I thought that was really, really cool. So there's just so much going on visually with that card. It's a gorgeous set, and I think collectors have definitely taken note. Whereas the counterpart in the other series from that year is the Ultrability Superstar, which is super die cut. I got the Penny here. So a super die cut. They are both exactly as rare as each other, but this one is not worth nearly as much as the Superpower, and I think it's because of the design. So that's one of those interesting things where scarcity is the same, but value is not. So, and then that set 97-98 Ultra is just an all-time set. There's so many great things in there. So another one that I love purely for the design. Obviously, Penny doesn't hurt. All right, another one. So this is another one I love for the design, regardless of player. This is actually one of those sets that I think I might try to collect at some point, because I've got the big ticket items. So I've got three of them here. It's the 97, as you can imagine, SPX. Couldn't go without the Hall of View Heroes. So I've got a trifecta here. I've got the Jordan, which is obviously one of the more valuable ones in my collection. And then I've got KG, who's one of my side PC guys, and then of course I've got the Penny. And the thing I love about this is the entire SPX set, all the inserts except for this one, were all horizontal. This is the only one that's vertical, which is super cool to me. I love having that die cut with the vertical lines. But you've got 4 pictures jammed onto this little card in a really classy way. You've got that hologram, but you've also got, I don't know if you can pick it up, but the Penny, a lot of those holograms are motion capture. So the player kind of has a little bit of an unhappy face, and then they have a smile a lot of times, or they'll make kind of a funny face. Really cool stuff. There's so much to look at with those. Not only the die cuts, but those holograms are just, I remember Sharif Abdul-Rahim, this is the base set. Instead of smiling, he kind of makes like a shocked face, which is really cool seeing that in motion. So there's tons of fun things to find in that set. If I could plug that set a little bit more. Yeah, what else do we have? So another insert set. So this is one I know you've got some connections at Panini, and I would love to talk to somebody at Panini about having a kind of revamped version of this set. It scratches a lot of needs, I think, for them. And, we're not going to nerd out necessarily on all the specifics and all that. But the set is 99-2000 Hoops Build Your Own Card. So this is my Iverson. This is one that I redeemed back in 1999. So the cool thing with these, I don't have the booklet, but what you would do is you would pull the booklet out of a pack. The booklets were inserted pretty frequently, 1 in 4 packs. And then you would take, and there were 3 different designs of the front, and there were 3 different designs of the back. And you would pick your first option for the combination, and then your second option for the combination. You'd send it in with a money order, so they could send, the card back with whatever your combination was. They were each numbered to 250, so they would give you what your combination was while supplies lasted. If your combination was, all sold out, then you would get something else, so they would guarantee that you would get a card, but it might not be the card that you were, looking for the combination. So this one actually, if I can show it again, is number 243 out of 250. And I always love having cards that are kind of towards the end of the print run. So there should be more of those popping up on eBay than you actually do see. Interestingly enough, the Iverson does not pop up much. So we know there's 240 that were produced, but we don't know where all those are. And that's one of those sets that is really hard to find. There are some players that just weren't redeemed much. The Vince Carters are really easy to find. The Iversons are not that easy to find. The Keith Van Horns are extremely hard to find. And for some reason, I did not like Keith Van Horn back in the day, and I redeemed one of those. And when I shared mine on Instagram, one of the Keith Van Horn collectors, and there's a few big Keith Van Horn collectors, they hit me up and they gave me an offer that I never thought in a million years I would get for a Keith Van Horn card. So I was like, yeah, dude, if you want it, it's yours. And at that point, I didn't realize how hard they were to find because, I just wasn't up on Keith Van Horn cards. But now they educated me a little bit on those. So really fun stuff. And again, I've got some fun ideas for Panini with that. So if anybody wants to hit me up, the Instagram handle, always happy to talk. And then, so, I'll just keep going through these. So another one that I have fond memories of. So I talked a lot about my dad getting us cards for Christmas and boxes and packs and all that kind of stuff. So one of the cards that I was blown away by one Christmas was the 93 Finest Penny Rookie. He got it for me at PSA 9. And this was the early days of PSA, early slab. And I was just, floored that I got a graded card. Having any graded cards back in the 90s was very uncommon. You can see on the back, you've got the hologram, the PSA hologram that you don't find too often anymore. So very old slabs. So got that. And it's been fun seeing on Card Ladder that those are going up exponentially, it seems like, especially the PSA 10. The PSA 9 is not going anywhere, but I needed to get a twin for it. So I got the refractor later on in life in the PSA 9 as well. I had to get, two 9s. I could have gotten the 10, but who needs a 10 when you've got two 9s, right? Again, fun seeing.
He wanted twins, right? Like
I wanted twins. They're both 9s, so hey, why not?
Yeah.
So those are fun memories, and regardless of how high the price goes on the pennies, those are cards that will never be leaving my collection. Interesting side note: I don't have it in my hands right now, but I was able to obtain the BGS 9 of the base version. And it's interesting because the BGS 9 sold for about a third of what the PSA 9 is selling for right now. So kind of a little bit, in my opinion, of a hobby inefficiency. I like BGS a lot, so I grabbed that because I thought it'd be cool to have a PSA 9 and then compare it to the BGS 9. So really cool stuff there. Let's see. We got time for more?
We have all the time in the world. Jake, show me what you got.
So another set that I think is extremely underappreciated, very rare, and again, 90s, but it's also kind of hard to identify. So the 97-98 Upper Deck game dated, so I've got the Penny and I've got the Iverson. These cards were actually harder to pull, if you believe it, from a pack than a jersey card. And this was the first year of Upper Deck doing jersey cards. So these were the odds are going to fail me off the top of my head, but I think these were one in 1,500 packs, so 1,500 packs or something along those lines. Over 1,000 packs you had to open to get one of those. And the only way to tell that that's a game dated opposed to the base is it's got a foil finish on it. And I remember as a kid looking at those in the Beckett, and I was like, so is this one that I have a game dated or not? I couldn't really tell. And a lot of people, hobby veterans even will hit me up and say, how do I tell? And I said, look, once you see the foil version, you can't unsee it. Like there's no way to confuse the two. So if you're looking at something you're not sure if it's the game dated, it's not the game dated. The foil is you can't miss it. But I shouldn't say you can't miss it because clearly there have been some that have missed it, and it just seems like those are more scarce. I mean, if you run the numbers, I was talking to Michael Moeller, who's like incredible at figuring out print runs. He was saying that he thinks that the true print run is probably close to like 200 to 300, but it seems as far as how often we see them come up, there's probably only 100 to 200 of each player. They've just gotten lost in the shuffle or whatever. So very rare cards. And I always feel like if Upper Deck could serial number those, they'd probably be a lot more celebrated than they are today, but they're not. So, cards that I love to get, they've got a ton of stars. Kobe's not in that set, but Jordan's in there, Penny's in there, KG, Iverson, most of the big stars from the 90s. If you like the guy, they're probably in. I think they had like almost one player from each team. Some of the players didn't make sense, like Vinny Del Negro. Why didn't you have David Robinson? But I digress. Really cool set. I love those because they're, just kind of really rare, really hard to find, but kind of fly under the radar. So you pick them up for a bargain sometimes. Let's see what else we got. So this is a little bit of a sad story, but the card that came out of it is great. So I'll show the card first, and then we'll tell the story. So 98.99 Skybox Thunder Noise Boys, really cool die cut. These also, a lot of people love the lenticular. These are almost like a mini lenticular, and the cards are super thin. So that's why I have it in a team bag so it doesn't fall out of this top loader. But it's hard to pick up on camera. I know the glare is probably terrible, but the way that the light hits that, you got kind of like a gold to a bronze, and that mini lenticular is just gorgeous in hand. Pictures really can't do it justice. So that is a card that I got in a trade with 2 other penny cards, and the card I traded away is one that will haunt me. So this was a year ago now, just under a year ago. I went to Target on a random day, and I said, hey, you know what, I'm going to grab a pack of Optic because they were actually sitting on the shelf in August. Can you believe that?
No,
so I got back. Yeah, I know, right? It's like that's a different world. So I got back into the car. I started opening the hanger pack that I got, and I was sitting there with my brother, and I was saying, okay, we're looking for Luka. I want to pull a Luka. Trey would be nice as well. Even the LeBron Hollow hadn't taken off at that point. So, that wasn't necessarily something I was, clamoring for. So going through, and I see some color. And when you see a color, it's always a good thing, right, in those packs. So I'm like, okay, we've got some color. It's a good start. And then I kind of slowly roll it away, and I see rated rookie. I'm like, all right, this is going in the right direction. And then I pull it away, and it's Luka. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. So I pulled the pink retail exclusive of Luka, number to 25. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. So in August, I was saying to myself, okay, do I think Luka's going to do better than he did last year? I mean, how does he ascend in value? He's got to really put together an MVP-like season on a team that could be a championship contender. And the odds of the Mavericks doing that aren't great. Luka, is he going to be Tim Duncan 2.0? I don't think so. So I was like, you know what? I'm willing to move this card. So I traded that for that penny and a couple others. And of course, Luka went on, he had an MVP caliber season. We'll see what happens in this postseason. The Mavericks did very well, and we saw Luka prices go through the roof. So that card, when I pulled it, I think it was roughly a $300 card. And I think it's safe to say that it's probably a $3,000 card now.
I hate this story, Jake, because you offered this card to Chris and I, and I wanted it. I wanted it so bad. But at the time, we had just bought a lot of Luka, and Chris was like, "You already have a pink cracked ice." At the time, I had 3. You don't need another pink Luka, and I was like, "But it's so pretty."
I know, yeah.
And Chris was like, "No, you don't need. Do you really need it?" And I was like, "No, I don't need it. Okay, fine." And then you ended up getting rid of it, and we actually ended up seeing that card in person because it made its way. Yeah, it's made its way down to Orange County, and we were at a card show, at a Boys and Girls Club down in Orange County, and the guy who got it from his, I think it was his Instagram group or his Facebook group, all pitched in to get it. He was there. And we ended up holding your pink card, your pink Luka, and I looked at Chris and I was just like, this could have been ours.
Yeah, it was a really cool story, and it was one of those things that when because I was working with those guys in the group, and I was like, I would love to help out. I can't just let this card go for nothing. I've got to get something in return. So that's why we worked on the trade, because it was somebody who was kind of divesting their collection. So, to them, money wasn't really the object. So I was like, cool, I can get some new PC pieces. We can move this on. And really cool to see that came back as a 10, PSA 10. So that's always fun, as somebody who opens packs a lot and I don't grade cards a lot, there's a lot of people that will say, I know how to open packs better than you. Well, I pulled something that came back as a 10. So there's that.
The whole, like, the fact that you think that, like, the fact that people think that, like, the way you open the card is a guarantee of getting a grade. Like, have you not seen how the prism was cut at the factory? Like, that doesn't, like, centering matters. Like, you don't ruin the centering by opening the pack. But yeah, okay. End rant. All right. That's awesome. It's a sad story on both of our fronts to hear that one. So thanks for sharing, Jake, and bringing this whole interview down.
You know, the interesting thing, though, is if I had kept that Luka, in all honesty, the only connection I have to it is just it's a valuable card. Which is why whenever I look at those penny cards, I'm like, I'm way happier with those penny cards than I would be with that Luka, because all it would be is almost like an albatross in my collection, where it'd be one of those things that I would be trying to extract the most value. Like, it would get into that type of game that just isn't fun for me. I would rather have the fun cards for my collection than have a value. You know, it's fun to have valuable cards, but when you're a true collector, I feel like the value is almost like a high score on a video game. You know.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Do you have any other cards for us, or?
I mean, I could go all day.
All right, let's do one more.
One more, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to limit it. All right, so the one I'm going to actually share is something that I learned about this card recently. So this is the Thunder and Lightning from Skybox from 97, 98. And the interesting thing with this card, if you see those kind of like lightning bolts coming off a penny, those are actually glow in the dark. And I never knew that about this card. I kind of slept on this card for a while, and I don't remember where I saw it, but I think there was a post on Facebook, maybe one of the Facebook groups recently, and they were talking about the Jordan, and they shared that. Did you know that this is actually a glow in the dark card? And I was like, no way. So I tried it out, and I went into a dark room with it, and I said, you got to be kidding me. They put glow in the dark on a card. That's mind-boggling.
That's so cool.
Really cool. Something that I can appreciate even more about the card after I had gotten it. You know, just another one of those cool 90s designs from the Fleer Skybox company.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing some of your favorite cards from your PC. I love it. I always, as you know, I always love looking at cards and hearing like people's stories about how they got them or why it's important to them. So thank you for sharing. Now, the question I love to ask my guests: does your wife collect cards?
So, great question. Mrs. 90s b-ball cards is a great sport. I think that she tolerates my collecting, and occasionally me talking to her about, hey, did you see, you didn't see, but here, let me share this with you. You know, and then she just kind of like give me that look and just, okay, thanks. And when I pulled that Luka and I was telling her, hey, you know, I was like, okay, what can get her excited about this card? I was like, well, if I tell her I spent $10 on this pack and got a $300 card, maybe she'll be a little more interested. So I said, you know what? We need to get you a pack and you need to try your luck because, you know, beginner's luck, I've seen a lot of people have it. And she's like, sure, okay, I'll do that. So we went to Target, we got her a pack, and she let it sit for like days. And I was like, are you going to open this? Because me, I'm just like, the second I get it, I have to rip it. And she was like, yeah, I'll get around to it eventually. And I was like, how about now? And she's like, oh, okay, fine, sure, I'll open it. And she pulled like a Marvin Bagley purple. Like she did well. She pulled a Kobe, which is her favorite player. You know, Kobe. No, it wasn't Kobe. Anthony Davis. I'm sorry. She's a big Lakers fan. So pulling the Anthony Davis was really cool for her. But it still just did not get her excited. So I even had her on an Instagram live stream with me one time where I got some packs that somebody had sent me and asked me to open. So I said, okay, I'll do it on Instagram live. So I said, hey, you know, kids are in sleep. Do you want to open some packs with me? She said, sure, no problem. So she actually, I'll never forget, she held the cards like this in front of the camera, and then she slowly dropped each one. And I was like, no, don't do that. I was catching them underneath before they hit the table. And she's like, what's the matter? And I'm like, if they hit the table, you'll damage them and they're worthless. I was like, the whole point is to keep them in good shape. She's like, I didn't know. I was like, yeah, I mean, that's a cool way to slow roll, but it's also a great way to damage your cards. So, you know, she just hasn't really gotten into it. But like I said, she's a good sport. She tolerates my collecting, and sometimes trying to share my passion with her that she just does not quite get. But there's things that she's passionate about that I just don't get, that, you know, the shoe goes on the other foot. So she's
okay.
not one.
And what does she think about your YouTube channel?
I think she thinks it's cool. The time that she doesn't think it's too cool is when it takes away from family time, which I try to make sure it doesn't. But you know, that's always kind of a struggle, is to make sure that I've got time to put out some content, especially now with a newborn. You know, that family time is a little bit more important. So trying to spend less and less time making content, but still trying to provide value, is kind of a constant tug of war. And she's good about, you know, sensing if I get a little bit stressed out about I need to get something recorded, and you know, kind of relenting and saying, okay, you know, I'll give you some time off. But I think that the cool thing for her, again, is, you know, when I started being able to get ad revenue on there, and I could tell her, hey, you know what, I'm actually able to generate some money. You know, maybe we can fund a Disney trip at some point in time in the future. I think that's what started to get her a little bit more interested in, okay, you've been doing this for 2+ years and you're finally seeing something come out of it. Whereas for me, you know, the enjoyment is really the connection with all of the hobbyists out there. For her, it's kind of, okay, you're making money off of this hobby, so now I'm into it.
And does she know how much some of your cards cost?
She's not terribly aware of the value of most of my cards. And I don't know if that's because she just doesn't want to know, or she's just not concerned about it. But you know, she knows that I don't spend money that we need for anything, you know, bills, or, you know, I've got my budget of free spending money. She has her budget of free spending money. I don't go outside of that, so she respects the fact that I can do what I like with that money. And you know, I think that if she knew how much some of the cards were worth, she'd be like, why do you still have these? Why don't you sell these? Why don't we, you know, do something fun with the money? Well, this is fun for me. So I know that I hang on to the Kobe cards that I have for her. And sometimes when I tell her, hey, this card's gone up and this is how much it's worth, she's like, okay, so sell it. We can use that money for something else, like a vacation. So sometimes it's like, okay, I don't think it's a good time to sell it, so I just won't tell them how much it's worth yet.
Very interesting. Okay. I always find it interesting, and I know like our listeners have heard this spiel before, because Chris and I like feed off of each other when the card is up. That Luca is a very strange example of like us being like, no, we don't need this card. Like, it's one of the only times, and like, look how it turned out. So now we're like, I think, completely on the other side. Where like, it'll be like, do we need this RPA? And it's like, what? Like, of course we need this RPA. Like, we'll make it work. Like,
right.
So, like, do we need this? Like, I don't know, like these Project 2020 cards behind me. Like, yes, like I really enjoy the look of this card. And then he's like, okay, yeah, I think they're cool. Like once I see them in hand. So, I find it interesting for couples who aren't collecting together, the dynamic of collecting within that relationship, because we sometimes what?
I always feel a little bit envious of you guys being able to kind of conglomerate your collection together. Sometimes the things that you guys are able to do with your collection is you know, awe-inspiring, and it's really cool to see a couple that collects together. The only thing that I can say that my wife and I both kind of get jazzed up about together is she also likes wine. She's not as much of a wine nerd as I am, but the other thing is Jordan shoes. So you know, there are times that she'll say, hey, like when the Jordan shoes, the 11s, the Concords dropped, she said, we need to get this for the whole family. And I said, do we really need to get these for the whole family? She said, yes, we do. I was like, okay, end of discussion. I'm not arguing with you because I love them too. So.
including the kids who like would grow out of them in like 2 months.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got them for everybody. And so the way that we could rationalize it, right? We tried very hard. We said, well, because we knew that we were having another child. We said, well, we'll get them for our daughter, and then eventually, the new child will be able to fit into them. So they'll grow into them. So somebody will be able to use them. Anything to justify the purchase. And we also were saying that we were going to do like a family photo shoot together, because we always get them like a little bit bigger than what my daughter's currently wearing. And then by the time that she fit into them, we had coronavirus, nobody doing a photo shoot. So, we'll see what we do with those, but it's still fun.
All right. Nice. I like them. And then you now have 2 children. Congratulations on the newest addition to your family. Are you going to plus cards with your kids?
I would love to. I actually had my daughter on one episode of my show because she gets a huge, her and her cousins. So my daughter's 5, and then she's got a cousin who's 5, another cousin who's 6. They think it's hilarious that I'm on YouTube. So they'll see like my videos playing, they'll be over at the house, they'll be on the iPad or whatever. And they'll be like, wait a second, you're on YouTube? Are you like Ryan for Toy Review? And I'm like, not quite like Ryan, but yeah, sure. I'm on YouTube. So she got interested and she was like, can I be on YouTube with you? I was like, of course you can. So she was on a video. She was 3 at the time. And then she's been asking me to be on again. So I'm trying to figure out something that would be fun for her to do with cards on the channel. So, I think she's interested more because of the video aspect rather than the cards. But we'll see as she gets older if she's interested in the cards. Who knows? But if she is, I'll be right there for her.
All right, awesome. That wraps up all of my questions. If you do you have any questions?
No, I'd love to do this again. I'm sure at some point I'm going to have you on my channel now. I'm starting to do some interviews. But I think that's it for right now.
I would love to. Just let me know when, and I would be honored to have you, Jake. Thank you so much for being on today. Okay, guys, thank you for watching Kristina's Corner this week. It's a pleasure, as always, to be able to bring you amazing content and awesome content creators like Jake at 90s 90s_bball_cards on Instagram. Make sure you go follow him, and if you don't sub to his YouTube channel, like where have you been, and go do that now. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks again, Jake, for an amazing episode and amazing interview. Have a good week, everyone.